Mark Rogers, the voice of college football, in a state where I just can't take it anymore. We have people running college football conferences that apparently just don't look ahead, think things through, build a system, build a structure, build a format that makes sense. Last week, we addressed the Big Ten situation in which Ohio State, in this scenario, would be 5-0, not playing in the Big Ten championship game, in favor of Indiana at 5-1, with a loss head-to-head to Ohio State. Go back, watch that video. I'm not going to go down the 18 different reasons why that is completely moronic. Okay. The situation that came to my attention just a few minutes ago in breaking down USC and Washington State with Matt Lowry on Conquest Chronicles is that right now USC and Colorado are undefeated in the Pac-12 South Division. USC and Colorado were scheduled to play last weekend. They could not because of COVID regulations. Okay. Colorado is 3-0, but only 2 of those wins are in the Pac-12. USC is 3-0. All wins are in the Pac-12 conference. Okay. So if the final 2 weeks of the season go uninterrupted for USC and Colorado, then both teams will be 5-0. USC will be 5-0 in the Pac-12. Colorado will be 4-0 in the Pac-12 because they made up a game against San Diego State to fill that open slot last week. So by no fault of Colorado, they will have one less game in the Pac-12. Okay, 5-0, 5-0, 4-0 for Colorado within the conference. Okay, so who goes to the Pac-12 championship game? Does it make any sense? No, it doesn't, because how do you break a tie within a division? Of course, you go to head-to-head. Well, the teams did not play because of the cancellation last week. USC is scheduled to play Washington State, followed by UCLA. Colorado does not play USC. The game's been canceled. The game has not been rescheduled. Okay. If you go down the tie-breaking system in any division, whether it be in college football or the NFL, it does make sense. But those tiebreakers can only come into play when teams have lost games. So if you're trying to determine which 6-2 team should make the playoffs, well, you go down the tiebreaker system, and there's going to be a tie that's going to be broken at some point because of common opponents, because of losses that were incurred in the season. But in this case, both teams have won all their games, so the tiebreaker system does not work because they're going to tie in every instance because they beat everyone in the conference. So what do you think the final tiebreaker is just prior to flipping a coin? Which they shouldn't even have to have the stipulation of flipping a coin because the tiebreaker prior to the coin flip will never be a tie. So I don't even know why they put the coin flip in there. The tiebreaker, folks, is that the college football playoff ranking is going to determine who goes to the Pac-12 championship game. How completely moronic is that? That we have given 13 people highly qualified. I respect the people. My shot taken here is not against the individuals on the selection committee. It's against the process of giving them the power to select who's going to make the college football playoff. And then as we see in these tie-breaking systems around college football within conferences and divisions, we have also given them the power to determine who wins a division championship. That's idiotic. So just because the College Football Playoff Selection Committee determined before the season was ever played, before anybody stepped on the field, before one kickoff was made, that USC was better than Colorado. They have clearly determined that before anybody played a game. They have not given Colorado any consideration. Colorado is not in the top 25. USC is well within the confines of the top 25. And look at their resumes. They're extremely similar. USC is not dominating, and Colorado barely scraping by opponents. They've played very similar opponents with very similar results. USC is obviously favored based on brand name and talent. They have more talent than Colorado. The results are very similar. So USC is not going to be eclipsed by Colorado in the college football playoff rankings as long as both teams stay unbeaten. There is no question about that. So the College Football Playoff Selection Committee is going to determine who plays in the Pac-12 championship game if both of these teams win their final 2 games. That is, again, moronic. What should the Pac-12 do? Well, number one, correct its tiebreaker system, which is head-to-head, common opponents, and a reasonable tie-breaking system on down the line. That is normally going to determine the champion in a reasonable way. But in this case, again, both teams would be undefeated. Therefore, no tiebreaker is going to break that tie. The tiebreaker should be that you take some reasonable metric. Point differential should be the first one, and apply it because they are playing very similar schedules within the Pac-12. They are playing very, very similar opponents. Apply the point differential, not the college football playoff ranking that is determined by 13 biased individuals. Number one. Number two, how about this? Play them. Listen to this. USC is playing Washington State this weekend. Colorado is playing Arizona. Both games are still scheduled to be played. Have Colorado and USC play the game that they missed last weekend. Have them play the game. Arizona and Washington State can play. Neither of them are in a conference championship race as it stands right now. Washington State's only lost 1 game. They could possibly get into the Pac-12 North. But they are just displacing a non-division opponent with another non-division opponent. So it's not going to factor. You're not taking away a Washington State-Washington game or a Washington State game against any division opponent. The same with Arizona. So you are not hurting or impacting their schedule in a negative way. They are still playing a non-division opponent, and you just take and switch opponents, and it solves the issue. USC, Colorado should be playing this weekend, and Washington State and Arizona. Voila, it's not difficult. Do it!